Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? Me? Well, I am firing on all cylinders this morning after an excellent top secret meeting yesterday. Tell you more about that at some point in the future. But I'm going to need all that energy today because not only am I producing this show, but later tonight I'm recording a transatlantic interview that will be bringing you in the next few days. In addition to all of that, today marks the 1 week countdown to the second of our Caterpillar World Premiere films. We're coming back to that a bit later in the show. But if you would like to win a Caterpillar Breaker model during the last, if you didn't win a Caterpillar Breaker model in the last World Premiere, there's another chance to grab one of three later next week at 7 p.m. on the 14th. Just one final thing before I press the big green go button. Our question of the day is, what do you believe will emerge as the industry's fuel of the future? Follows on for a rather interesting poll that we ran over on Instagram this past weekend, and I'd love to get your take. In fact, I'm going to pick up on it in just a few moments as well. So without further ado, let me roll the intro, post that question of the day, and get this show on the road. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I'm your host, Mark Anthony. It is Wednesday, the 7th of December, and as that remarkably persistent guy just said, welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's show, is the industry in denial? In denial over diesel? Hang on 1 second. Things have gone horribly awry with my screen. Yes, is the industry in denial over the demise of diesel? We have a construction hyper-lapse that will stun and amaze. There's an exclusive interview with Italian manufacturer Simex, a growing force in the field of attachments, and Sandvik demonstrates the power of electricity, appropriate given that we're talking future fuels. And there's no business like snow business, which will make more sense when we get to it. But first, let's see who among the rich and the shameless will be celebrating a birthday on this day of days. Happy birthday! And it's many happy returns to linguist and philosopher Noam Chomsky. See, very highbrow show this. And to exorcist actress Ellen Burstyn. Happy birthday also to Scouse comedian Stan Boardman. You remember him, he of the Germans. To gravel voice singer Tom Waits, and to Basketball Hall of Famer Larry Bird. To professional wrestler Ravishing Rick Rude. To Scottish footballer Colin Hendry, who you may recall was basically sent into retirement by Paul Gascoigne. If you're English, you'll get it. Also, happy birthday to actor C. Thomas Howell, golfer Luke Donald, and to my former neighbour, footballer John Terry. Many happy returns to them, one and all. This past weekend, I ran a poll over on our Instagram page. What's the point of having 150,000 plus followers if you can't ask them a question every once in a while? The question that I asked them was quite simply, what is construction's future fuel? And I gave the people responding 4 main options: diesel, HVO, electric, and hydrogen. Now, I can tell you that hydrogen came out on top. I can also tell you that HVO came dead last. But I think the fuel that came in at number 2 may surprise some of you. Are you ready? Yep. 40% of the several thousand people that took part in our straw poll believe that diesel is the fuel of construction's future. Now, admittedly, I didn't suggest a timeline for my poll. Perhaps those that responded decided upon a 5-year time frame, in which case those that answered diesel may have a point. There's also a possibility that some, or even many, of those that took part in the poll were based in countries with, how do I put this, a more laid-back approach to sustainability and climate change. But even allowing for those two possibilities, it seems that there are some people out there in the industry that seem to believe that diesel will run and run, that talk of its demise has been greatly exaggerated, that climate change is just a bunch of woke hooey put about by those that are happy to glue themselves to our highways and byways. If those that believe that the reign of diesel are far from over are at the industry workplace, I can understand their reluctance to change a fundamental part of the industry. If, however, those that took part in the poll are at the upper echelons of the sector, it appears that the environmental message still isn't getting through. I'm about to show you a film. It's sorry, that was the end of that bit. My script's just gone squiffy. I do apologise for that. I'm just going to say a very quick. Let me just get rid of this. Bear in mind, that's better. I'm just going to say a very, very quick good morning to our friend Mark Whiting, who's just joined us. Morning, Mark. Thank you very much indeed for being here. I'll do more hellos in a few moments. But first, let me roll one of these.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
I am about to show you a film. It's a film that captures the construction of a skyscraper in the Chinese city of Shenzhen over a period of 4 years and 10 months. But what is remarkable is that the entire construction process has been captured in a single movie in which the view and perspective changes constantly and seamlessly. Before I hit the play button, please bear in mind this is not an animation, this is real. Take a look at this. The description on that video tells you exactly how that was done. It was basically multiple drone flights over a period of 4 years, 10 months, all mapped to precisely the same coordinates, and they just gradually spliced all of those together. Even though I know all of that, I still don't know how they did it. Okay, we're heading for Germany yet again, only this time we are doing so in the company of an Italian. Simex is one of the rising stars of the demolition and excavator attachment sector. So during Bauma 2022, a visit to their stand was high on my list of priorities. While I was there, I actually managed to secure 2 full-length interviews. We'll be bringing you a snippet of the second interview on tomorrow's show. But here's a clip from the first of those 2 conversations.
Actually, I would like today to get a better focus on the rotary cutter range. And we are, let's say, very proud of saying that currently we do have a range of rotary cutters with and without chain transmission in the middle, covering a range of excavators from 1.2 tons up to 70 tons. And for us, as you can understand, this is very challenging, very, sometimes very tough, but also at the end of the day, it allows us to say that we are maybe one of the best producers, manufacturers of rotary cutters in the whole world. The thing I like the most about our rotary cutters is that they are sort of unique engineering, because we've always been walking the road of inventing something. And actually, we, since the very start, we have started manufacturing the very first rotary cutters back at the beginning of the 21st century. And we've started from the start with a philosophy of the direct drive motor. So ours is the only one in the market, or was the very first one in the market, having the integrated motor. So the motor is right in the middle of the two cutting drums, and it's directly linked to the cutting drums themselves, and that's give us many advantages. So the very first one is that there is the power ratio is the highest in the market, because there is no gear reduction or belts or anything. Second one is that we do have less parts, and less parts that moving means less parts that can break down. And the third part, but to me probably is the most important, because I like to think the way the end user thinks. Our rotary cutter is zero maintenance. So every day the operator just have to turn up the engine of the excavator, just control the peaks of the machine, of the attachment, and that's it. You don't have to grease, you don't have to tension, you don't have to maintain anything in the daily life.
I just had a very quick note from Ken Hatcher. Ken, have a look at the screen. Question of the day: what is construction's future fuel? You can come up with anything, but obviously the main ones to choose from is diesel, hydrogen, HVO, or electric. Just while we're about that, I'm just going to post in the chat a link to the full-length version of that Simex film over on our YouTube channel. That should be with you right about now. So let's get back to this.
The Miller GT series heralds a new era of unrivaled power and cutting-edge intelligent coupler technology, increasing job site safety, machine versatility, and productivity. It's the added versatility that you need at the value you can afford. To find out more, visit millergroundbreaking.com.
We were talking at the top of the show, and still now, about future fuels, about how our Instagram poll identified hydrogen as the future fuel of choice. Of those polled, only 12% believed that electric would be the saviour of the sector. The figures might just be a little bit different over in the field of mining.
It's a huge step change for our industry to move from diesel to electric. I'm happy to take part in it. In 2016, we started a feasibility study to see whether or not C-Zone was a viable ore body. And from 2016 to 2019, while we were working on that feasibility study, we recognized that electrification would have a lot of benefits to our mine site. We really wanted to embrace electrification as the future for our mine and potentially a future for the industry.
With the C-Zone project approval in 2019, we began our battery electric journey with several auxiliary pieces of equipment. We then moved that on into more of the material movement, bringing in the 518B as our first major piece of infrastructure. The LH518B was a really attractive option for us because it has the battery swap technology opposed to the quick charging, and that really bodes well in a block caving operation. Battery swapping ensures a lot more utilization of the equipment, whereas a fast charge, you do need to have downtime to facilitate that charging.
When the LH518B first came on site, we defined KPIs that we wanted the machine to hit to build our confidence in the machine before we purchased it.
First one, availability of the unit. Second, how long was the battery life in typical operation? And third, what were the typical operating parameters with the equipment? How fast did it muck? How fast did it tram? Was it comparable to a diesel? For all the trial parameters we evaluated, the LH518B exceeded all of our expectations. Probably the biggest surprise in terms of a difference comparing it to a diesel piece of equipment was the sheer power. The LH518B has significantly more mucking power. In a traditional diesel, you have to rev the engine to get all your hydraulic power, whereas in the BEV, it's the maximum amount of hydraulic power right from the get-go.
For me, it was the lack of noise and the lack of heat. Compared to our current diesel LHD fleet, the battery produces maybe 10% of the heat comparatively. It's astounding how much less heat it produces. So it's been just great for our underground workplace and environment.
Sound, huge impact. You can basically have a one-on-one conversation next to the operating piece of equipment, which you could never do with a diesel. So from a productivity and efficiency standpoint, it's miles ahead of the competition in terms of the diesel equivalent.
We're seeing increases in productivity compared to the diesel equivalent, LHD. Tramming up ramp on grade, we typically estimate our diesel LHDs to move at about 7-8 kilometers per hour, whereas we're seeing speeds of 12 to 14 kilometers per hour with the battery LHD. We are seeing an improvement in our cycle time. With the LH518B, we've seen that the energy consumption is 20% of the diesel equivalent LHD, and that means that the overall energy cost compared to diesel is about 10.9% while the scoop is operating. Part of the BEV strategy is to be a good corporate citizen. We recognize that greenhouse gases around the world are climbing, and we want to try to reduce our greenhouse gas footprint. When the scoop is in full production, we're reducing our GHG emissions by about 700 tons of CO2 equivalent per year compared to a diesel LHD. What we've seen from our current data on the LH518B is that changing one diesel LHD for a battery electric LHD can reduce our greenhouse gases up to 2%. As far as changing the batteries go, there's been no issues. The auto swap, auto connect technology has been smooth and seamless, and without having to exit the cab to unplug the battery, it's been a really nice benefit for the operators. What we've seen with the Sandvik battery swap technology is that we're able to reduce our peak power demand by allowing the charging time to occur over a larger time duration. And so ultimately for C-Zone, we do want to spread our power demand over the largest time possible to reduce the peak power demand on our infrastructure. Here at New Afton, we've had really good results with Sandvik battery equipment. We've always had a very good relationship with Sandvik. For a long time, we've been using Sandvik drills and bolters underground. And to continue our relationship and move into automation and now battery electric vehicles has been just a natural progression. Every mine has a capital purchase or a maintenance replacement coming up in the next few years, and they would be missing out if they decided not to investigate or pursue battery electric technology.
Anybody else think that the mining sector is handling the switch to future fuels just a little bit better than us here in demolition and construction? Or is it just me? The days are growing shorter and the nights are drawing in, and although we have yet to feel a real cold snap, I think we can all agree that winter has now very much arrived. Here in England, of course, that will probably mean half a dozen snowflakes sometime around February that will result in road closures and rail chaos. In other parts of the world, however, snow is quite a different kettle of fish, and perhaps it's not surprising that a Finnish company has produced precisely the kind of equipment needed to make it through a Scandinavian winter. Maybe it's because I work from home and I don't have to worry about travelling, and maybe it's because I grew up with an unfulfilled expectation of a white Christmas. But either way, I love the snow. I realise it'd be very inconvenient for proper working people, but I'd love to get some snow like that one day. Sorry, press the wrong button. Just wanted to give you a very quick reminder. On Wednesday next week, 7 p.m, we'll be back for the second of our two Caterpillar world premiere films. This is something that you've got to look forward to as soon as I can find it. There we are. Obviously, you've already seen that first episode back on the 30th of November. The second one is the 14th of December at 7 p.m. And there's going to be another 3 of those damn fine Caterpillar breaker models up for grabs on the night. Not sure if Gilles Ronnet will be able to join us. Fingers crossed, because he was very good value last time. But I'll keep you posted on all of that. Right, we need to press one of these before I sign off and get into the chat.
Sorry to interrupt the guy with the funny glasses, but if you're enjoying this video, please hit the like button as it helps our channel. Or, better still, share this video with a friend or a colleague. Thank you. Right, back to Beardy.
Right, that pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like, as always, into the chat to see what you're all saying today and to see if we can get a handle on all things future fuel. If you can't stick around for that, then please stay safe, look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. Have a great day, and thanks for watching. I'll be back here at 10 a.m. tomorrow, as per usual. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I will see you on the other side of this. Good morning. Live. Some of the buttons were out of order. I'm gonna go back to the beginning of the chat in just a second, but first of all I'm going to say good morning to. I'm going to take a wild stab at the first name being Matthias or Matthias, who says yo. Back to you, Matthias. Thank you for being here. As regulars will know, if you come on the show for the first time, you get some welcome confetti. So this goes out to our friend Matthias or Matthias. If you are still here, sir or madam, let me know where you're watching from. I'd love to get a handle on exactly where our viewers are. Right, let's get back to the beginning of the chat, and then we'll try and get into some of the other bits and pieces. Let's have a look. Who was first off the mark this morning? It was Mr. Ken Hatcher. Morning, Ken. Who looks like he's... I said earlier we haven't had a cold snap yesterday. I was only partially right. I was up in Stafford yesterday with Mr. Haddock, and it was bloody freezing there. It really was very, very cold indeed. Looks like it's cold down in Welsh Wales as well. Dan Cullen was hot on Ken's heels at top of the morning. One and all, happy hump day. Happy hump day indeed. I woke up this morning feeling even more tired than usual, which is, I'm always feeling tired these days. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to the Christmas break now. Just the ability to step away from the camera for a little bit and put my feet up in front of the TV. Still seems a long way off, unfortunately. Peter Ferguson has gone all international and continental on us. That says Guten Morgen. Guten Morgen back to you, sir, as well. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Rattling through. There is our question of the day. What is construction's future fuel? We'll come back to that in just a second. Mark Whiting's here. Morning, Mark. Thank you very much for joining us. Yes, going back to all things future fuel. Jim Turner is our first respondent on that. Question of the day: HVO coupled with diesel electric battery. You are at odds with the rest of the industry. Well, I say the rest of the industry, those that responded to our poll earlier, last weekend actually. Only 6% believe that HVO really has a place. Given the cost, given the availability, I can understand people's concerns over HVO. I also wonder if we're now just seeing it purely as a stopgap until something better comes along, and hopefully that something better may well be hydrogen. It's a little way off yet, but then I guess regulation and legislation commanding us to actually switch from diesel is a little way off as well. Let me get rid of this for the time being. Let's have a look. Jim Turner also says good morning. Well, thank you very much indeed, Jim. I think the tune he was relating to there was that City Mark skyscraper going up in Shenzhen in China. Amazing bit of technology. Our drone does the same sort of thing. We've never tested it to that degree, but effectively you can map a route for your drone to do, and it will do it time and time again. So for things like progress shots on a demolition or construction site, you program it, and then once a day, once a week, once a month, you send it up, and it just follows exactly the same route and comes back. But to have done that consistently over a period of almost 5 years, and then to splice all of that together to give us that sweeping hyper-lapse, amazing piece of work. I cannot even imagine the amount of editing that went into that. One of the things that we say here at Demolition News Towers, if we film a film for an hour, you're probably looking at somewhere between 3 and 4 hours to actually edit that, unless we get really lucky and we do the whole thing in one take and there's no editing to be done. But certainly some of the stuff that we do out on site and some of the stuff that we do at exhibitions, you're looking at somewhere between 3 and 4 times the shoot time to edit it. It really does take an enormous amount of time. So that Shenzhen skyscraper months and months and months of editing, I would imagine. Ken Hatcher asked what's the question of the day and then immediately answered it. Diesel, hydrogen and electricity. You're going for a combo, are you? I think there will be a bit of a combo, actually. We're working, I think I mentioned beginning of the week, we're working on a film as a result of our trip up to JCB to talk all things primarily hydrogen, but also electricity as well. And one of the boffins at JCB used a phrase that you'll see in the film when we finally put it out. He said, we can electrify pretty much anything. If you're willing to stack batteries and that kind of thing, we can electrify anything. But just because we can doesn't mean we should. And I think that will be the ultimate limiting factor for electric. I think there will come a point, and whether it's at the 5-ton mark, the 8-ton mark, the 10-ton mark, or as Volvo has suggested, possibly even the 20-ton mark, there will come a cut-off point where electric and battery power just isn't the sensible option, and above that, perhaps, comes hydrogen. Although, as we've just seen over in the field of mining, we'll come back to that in a second, there is obviously a fair degree of electrification taking place in the mining sector. As I say, we'll come back to that in a second. James Noble's here. Hope you're fit and well, James. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Gary Muirhead. Morning, Gary. Thank you very much indeed for you being here as well. Dan Cullen says, diesel or HVO, as I think electricity will be unreliable and expensive and time-consuming. Time-consuming is an interesting one. Although I did pick up, I think, on that Sandvik film, this idea of swappable batteries. Now, I know we've got that at the very bottom end. The likes of Wacker Neuson have got that in some of their electrified machines. Could we see that going up the food chain to some larger construction equipment? Be interested to see how that all pans out. James Noble says, hydrogen seems to be the future, but is there any waste product like electric has with batteries? Not as such. Obviously, hydrogen fuel cells, I guess, will deteriorate over a period, and we will have to do something with those. But when you look at what JCB are doing in terms of a hydrogen combustion engine, the only byproduct of that is actually the water that comes out the other end. You get water, and you get water and steam at the point of exhaust. Ken Hatcher makes a good point. It's the energy that you use to split it to just hydrogen. Yeah, I mean, effectively, the source material for hydrogen, no great surprise, is water. It's hydrogen, H2O, hydrogen and oxygen, and there is a process that splits the two out, so you get water going in one direction and you get hydrogen coming out the other. But we are still quite a way from that being commercially available. I think the fact that JCB have taken a bit of a leap when you look at the Bamford family, Joe Bamford, son of Lord Bamford, has actually got his finger in a couple of different hydrogen pies. I think he is, I'm not sure if he's the founder, but he's certainly a major investor in the company Rise, that is pushing hydrogen technology, including into things like buses as well. So I think JCB have really bought into the whole hydrogen future thing and are making it work. We just need to see the infrastructure available to actually get the hydrogen to really facilitate that switch. But I'm sure it's going to come. Jim Turner says, if larger site plant can incorporate that type of battery swap technology, we're back to battery swaps again, then electric would be a more viable option. Yes, it would indeed. I think that's a telling point that Ken Hatcher has made. The big mining companies can pass the cost to the consumers. Why can't we? What we're talking about with the switch from traditional diesel to hydrogen, electric, HVO, biodiesel, whatever the future fuel is, we are talking about a fundamental and paradigm shift within the industry. If we are being legislated to use a fuel that is twice as expensive or 3 times as expensive, then unfortunately, and it's uncomfortable, but unfortunately that fuel cost needs to be passed on. I think you know, we're going to have some very serious conversations with clients and explain to them, you know, we were running on red diesel that cost X. We're now running on hydrogen that costs X times 4. That's just the way it is. That's what regulations insist upon. We have no choice in the matter. That's what it is. There's your price. Take it or leave it. It's going to be an uncomfortable conversation. Nick Drew does like the Avant, thinks he likes all things Finnish, as you will know. Is that a battery? I don't know is the easy answer. Somebody sent us that film very kindly, and I didn't check, if I'm being completely honest. My guess is it's probably a diesel, but I don't actually know the answer. Mick Norton's in the house. Mick Norton, who is achieving something between fame and notoriety over on LinkedIn by his pursuit of this plant sector representative organisation and the nonsense that it is. If you're not already following Mick over on LinkedIn, please go and do so, because some of the conversations that are going on there, and it isn't just Mick. I know I've labelled Mick in the past as our resident cynic, and I'm sure he would wear that badge with pride. But when you read some of the comments on his latest post about this PSRO outfit, the number of people that say something along the lines of, it's the same old faces sat around the same old table doing the same old thing. It's a repeated thing. And I was listening to a podcast on my way up to Stafford yesterday, and somebody was talking about something completely unrelated to construction. Somebody was talking about a process that they believed to be broken. It was a financial system they believed to be broken, and somebody responded, yes, it is broken, but the reason it hasn't been changed is because it suits somebody or it benefits somebody not to change it. When you look at the founder members of this PSRO, it is the CPA and the NFDC. There is a current status quo within the training regime. Those that have to abide by it, those that have to pay for it, I think would all put their hands up and say the system doesn't work, it's expensive, it's overly complex. And yet those that administer training within the industry have now formed yet another collaborative organisation that seems intent on retaining that status quo. Why? Is it because it suits them to do so? I think it might be. Let's have a look. Jim Turner, HVO production can be up as it becomes more popular, as diesel is phased out. Phased out voluntarily by HVO being cheaper than diesel through taxation. Then it would be worth growing on a larger scale worldwide. I take your point. I do think that the switch, or the planned switch, I've just mentioned the NFDC about a year ago actually encouraged their members to adopt HVO as an alternative already, and I think the demand took the supply somewhat by surprise. It went from zero demand to some demand, and I don't think the industry was ready for it. However, I don't think anybody sees HVO as anything more than a stopgap until electric at one end and hydrogen at the other comes along and hopefully saves the day. And again, you know, where are we now? We're at the very tail end of 2022. A lot of this sort of stuff doesn't need to be finalised and put in place until 2030. And then obviously, you know, we're talking an even wider zero emissions road that will take us through to 2050. So we've still got 8 years in one instance rather, and 28 years in the other instance. So we've still got a bit of time to go. And as I say, having seen the first gen hydrogen machines from Liebherr and Hyundai over at Bauma, yes, they looked a bit undesigned, shall we say, but they have the technology. Having then seen the JCB backhoe loader, the Lodal, and the excavator as well, particularly the fact that they are basing it on hydrogen combustion, which is not entirely dissimilar to diesel combustion. I think the hydrogen revolution is perhaps a little bit closer than some of us might have believed. Still some way to go, but could we see the first properly commercially available hydrogen machines by the next Bauma back in 2025? I'd like to think so. There will definitely be more electric machines there. Whether we'll see anything revolutionary happen over at ConExpo remains to be seen. I'm laying plans for ConExpo literally as we speak. Looks like we'll be doing quite a bit of work over there, one way and another. So I need to book my flights and my hotel accommodation before all of that sells out. But yes, we will be reporting from ConExpo in Vegas in March. And then we're off to Plantworks, a little bit closer to home, maybe a little bit less glamorous. Peterborough or Las Vegas. I generally choose Las Vegas, if I'm being completely honest, but if the plant is in Plantworks, then you'll find me there as well. Our friend Mick is here as well. Morning, Mark, and morning all. Thank you very much indeed for that, Mick. Just a very quick reminder, 7 p.m. on next Wednesday, so this time next week, at 7 p.m. in the evening, we're back with the second of our hopefully 3 world premieres. There is a bit of a delay on the third film, but hopefully we'll get to do that one as well. And you will be in with a chance to win one of those damn fine breaker models. I've actually got mine out of the I've got mine out of the box now, and it's going to go up in one of these shelves at some point in the not too distant future. Keep an eye out for that. So yes, you do have a chance to win one of those. The interview that I'm doing tonight, we're doing it out of hours because I'm hoping it's going to be quite a long one and quite a detailed one, and it's on machine autonomy and that kind of thing. I mentioned in the past the fact that I have a bit of a bee in my bonnet about doing something, an audio/video podcast on all things technological. So whether it's telematics, future fuels, laser guidance, all of that kind of thing, all put into one big pot for your consumption and for your viewing pleasure or your listening pleasure, as the case may be. Hopefully, assuming this evening's interview and chat goes according to plan, that may well be the first of that new series, but I'll be keeping you posted on all of that. And then obviously I'm back here tomorrow and Friday for more of this. So if you are around tomorrow at 10 a.m, I'd love to see you there. If you are around 7 p.m. next week, next Wednesday, I'll see you there. I'll see you wherever you'd like to find us. I've got another couple of videos that we're working on, just to let you know. This idea of the industry being in denial over the demise of diesel, I think we can do something a bit more sexy and maybe a bit more amusing with that. And I'm also working on something, I don't know if anybody saw it. I'll tell you what, let's see if I can show it to you. There was an article in the revered Architects Journal a day or two ago. Are you seeing that now? Let me make it a bigger thing. And we're back to all things embodied carbon. The Anti-Demolition Coalition proposes alternatives to Birmingham's plans. For those of you that know, the illustration that you're looking at there is actually Birmingham's Ringway Centre, built back in the 1960s, 62 actually, and there have been plans to demolish it to make way for housing. But now a bunch of environmentalists have got their heads together and decided actually we can stop this in its tracks, prevent the demolition because of concerns over embodied carbon. So going back to what I was talking about in terms of video, once again, it looks like demolition there is an attempt to block demolition, and once again the demolition industry's powers that be are deafening in their silence. There has been no response whatsoever, despite the fact that this is in the Architects Journal. For those of you that don't know, in the terms of the world of architecture, that is pretty much the Sunday Times. It is a revered publication, and the very fact that it's not an organisation, it's not an environmentalist, it is architects and environmentalists and conservationists have got together to form a coalition to prevent the demolition of the Ringway Centre in Birmingham. So I am working on a video that will address Not that specifically, although that will be in it, but I think the video needs to address the wider thing about the fact that demolition doesn't just knock stuff down, doesn't just throw embodied carbon to the wind. The very fact that it paves the way for progress, but it also takes many of the materials from past construction and puts them back into the supply chain. And I think that's an argument and a conversation that has been largely lost on architects, conservationists and the environmental lobby. If nobody else is going to address it, I guess it falls to me to do so. So we're working on that. We'll be showing you that in a very near future. That will do us for today, I think. Where are we? Nearly at 50 minutes. I have places to be and people to see. So I'll love you and leave you. Have a good day, everyone. Take care of yourself. And I'll see you on the morrow if you are available. Till then, have a good one.